Welcome to Nobilis Erotica, the best science fiction and fantasy erotica anthology podcast in the known universe. This month, Gender Fuckery in Space. This is episode 493. I am Nobilis Reed. Outside of time and space, Patrick Mannus swims in the ether between the stars. As it turns out, space is really horny. Patrick is an emerging writer of speculative erotica and is the author of this month's story. Our narrator is yours truly. Remember that you can get even more erotic audio if you join the Patreon campaign at patreon.com/nobilis. In addition, you will get access to the podcast Discord and my undying gratitude. Here we go. The Bacteria That Evolved on the Trip to Zebulon 83 by Patrick Mannus. Narrated by Nobilis Reed. Charlie didn't think much of the reports of cancer-related deaths on the Zebulon 83 colony ship. They were sad to hear people had died, sure, but to Charlie, the deaths weren't personally more upsetting than the radiation-related leukemia deaths after the toxic train spill. If anything, they were more pissed about the train spill deaths because that was the government's negligence at work. The Zebulon 83 deaths seemed like just bad luck as a result of transit-related radiation exposure during cryopreservation. Charlie took slightly more notice when it came out that all the Zebulon cancers were prostate, breast, ovarian, and endometrial. Not so much because that meant anything to them scientifically speaking, but because it was just kind of odd. Charlie worked in IT, but even they could recognize it was unusual for cancers to cluster like that. When it came out that the cause of the unusual cancer clustering was unregulated growth of hormone-altering intestinal bacteria that had evolved during the flight to Zebulon 83, and that said same bacteria could be directed to change people's genders more effectively than any hormone supplements, Charlie sat up and took notice. They sent the article to a fellow comms satellite IT specialist. They didn't work for the same company, but even though it was a growing field, there were still few enough of them that you just knew the other commsatties. And Charlie had always kind of had a crush on Morgan. Morg, check it out. Interesting tech coming out of that Zebulon 83 colony ship. When they'd met at a commsatty conference, which was really just a place to use illicit and non-illicit substances and talk shit about the companies they worked for and all the exploits they had over the companies if they were ever wrongfully terminated, Charlie had been drawn to Morgan. They just got the sense of a kindred spirit. When your body was not always the right fit for your soul, you could see the same mismatch in others. And Charlie had seen that in Morgan. I've always just wanted tits, like huge ones run in my family. And just as I was starting to grow some rockin' ones, my dick stopped working and I had to stop taking estrogen. And spackling them on with surgery just doesn't feel the same, When I could grow them myself, I'd be so damn proud of them. Not that there's anything wrong with getting breast implants, they're just not for me. That's what Charlie had told Morgan after a combination of liquid, solid, and gaseous substances. Morgan had relayed similar troubles. I just want a prostate. Is that so much to ask for? I want someone to fuck me in the ass so hard cum shoots across the room. You're so lucky to have a prostate. Ha! If only we could pick the parts we wanted. If only. They hadn't talked about it since that night, but they'd stayed as close as friends as you can when you live halfway across the world from one another but work in the same field. Charlie really wanted Morgan to bring it up again, but they never did. Charlie wasn't sure if they'd scared them away or if they just weren't interested. On better days, Charlie told himself that Morgan probably just didn't remember. Regardless, Charlie had been too afraid to broach sexual subjects or even dating with Morgan since then. Morgan was 8 hours ahead of Charlie, so it would have been in the middle of the night, and there was no way they were going to get a response. Charlie opened up nbforums.porn and started reading the post, which usually helped them get off. Dear NB Forums, yesterday I came across the most beautiful creature I'd ever laid eyes upon. It didn't hurt that they had a rock-hard cock that was just the right size to press firmly against my prostate. Charlie stroked their cock as they read the story, but their heart just wasn't in it. They daydreamed of what it would be like to have a pussy and stringing together orgasm after orgasm. This got their dick hard, and they came quickly before dozing off to sleep. They dreamt of colony ships and bacteria changing their genitalia in transit. Charlie awoke to an alert on their phone. Gender-altering bacteria offered to next Zebulon 83 colony ship. Charlie had set it up so that any news story with Zebulon 83 and gender would create an alert. They couldn't look away from the story. Every article they read made them more and more envious. They wondered if any of the survivors of the first colony ship had had their genitalia changed in transit and how they felt about it. They bet some of them would have hated it, but Charlie really, really wanted to talk with someone who was happy about it. Were there any that got mixed and matched by chance? After all, how could the bacteria know exactly what to change? Did anyone wake up on Zebulon 83 with morning wood, prostate, rockin' tits, a clit, and the ability to string orgasms back-to-back for hours on end? What a sexual god they would be. Speaking of morning wood. Charlie rubbed one out and then thought about getting ready for their work-from-home ComSatty tasks, but decided to read the Zebulon 83 article. Maybe anyone can sign up, they thought, hopefully. Scientists on Zebulon 83 confirmed today that the cause of the sex hormone cancers of the colony ship are due to a previously undiscovered hormone cycle induced by cryopreservation. Researchers determined that gut bacteria evolved to utilize the latent hormones circulating in the cryopreserved colonists. With this as a nutrient source, the bacteria spun up a positive feedback loop that led cancers to undergo exponential growth once cellular homeostasis was restored post-cryopreservation, i.e. when they arrived at Zebulon 83. Charlie frowned. If the bacteria were killing the colonists, then why were they offering to give it to future colonists? However, the scientists have also shown from experiential data from the first colony ship that the same bacteria induced some individuals a reversion of the sex organs to an embryonic state, resulting in both external and internal sexual modifications. Charlie scanned quickly through the rest of the article. Had someone come through as the all-powerful sexual god they had imagined? Even though they just masturbated, they could feel blood flowing to their pelvis. But the article didn't mention any specific persons or transitions. Charlie immediately sent the article to Morgan with a wide-eye emoji. Much to their surprise, Morgan responded immediately. "Quit sending me this shit." What the hell? Charlie thought. I know we talked about this kind of thing that one night at the conference, but that was just wasted talk. It didn't mean anything. So they did remember. Damn. Charlie was shocked and hurt and shocked again. They considered Morgan their closest friend, and for them to talk to them like this, it was devastating. I'm sorry, Morg. I'm sorry. I won't send you any more of this stuff. ComSatty business only. Pinky promise. Charlie closed the chat, not expecting anything further, except maybe an apology. When their phone buzzed, that was what they were expecting, an apology. But it wasn't. It was an unusual activity alert they'd set up for their socials. Morgan had severed their connection on every platform they had in common. Charlie read the next message with trepidation. I can't anymore, Charlie. I'm done. Goodbye. You can no longer respond to this user. What the fuck? Charlie said to their empty room. It didn't respond. Charlie sighed and opened up the link for the Zebulon 83 colony ship sign-up. What did they have to lose? A penis? Some testicles? Sure, no big deal. A friend? No, because they'd never had one. When Charlie awoke from cryopreservation on the awakening deck of the colony ship We're Here, their first thought was how much the star looked like the sun and how much Zebulon 83 looked like Earth. If they squinted, they could even imagine the little satellites orbiting the planet that they'd been assigned to work on upon their arrival, even though they had yet to launch when they left Earth. The second thing they thought, or more felt, was anticipation. Had the bacteria done their job? The third thing they thought was spoken aloud, slurred through cryomeds. Who's blocking my view? Charlie blinked the cryo sludge from their eyes. Their vision was blurry, but growing clearer. I'm glad you're awake. A masculine voice, but somehow familiar. They didn't know anyone on Zebulon 83, though. "Who are you?" Charlie asked. But the person didn't respond. Charlie wiped away more eye gunk, and the person's features came into focus. Dense eyebrows, light brown skin, aquiline nose, a soft, thick-lipped mouth, and those eyes. Where have I seen those eyes? Dark green eyes with specks of blue. "Morgan?" Charlie yelped and immediately vomited all over the person's all-blue suit that looked like pajamas. Charlie sat up and puked again onto the person's shoes, which were the same light blue material as their pajama suit. The person patted their back. "I deserved that." To Charlie's surprise, the person made no move to clean off the puke. "That's just cryo-sick. It'll pass." Charlie nodded and resisted the urge to puke again. "Can I show you your quarters and explain myself?" Charlie didn't see anyone else around and was no good on their own, so they nodded. The person wrapped a blanket around Charlie and led them through a series of corridors to a medium-sized room with a large bed in the middle. "Your quarters," they said as they guided Charlie to the bed. Charlie looked up at them. They couldn't ignore the eyes. "You're Morgan." It wasn't a question. "Yes, but mostly I'm sorry." Charlie shook their head. "I don't understand." Morgan nodded. "I left after you, but the ships were better, so I got here first. I wanted to be your awakener, and they let me after I told them how awful I was to you and how sorry I was for it." "I'm surprised they trusted you." Morgan laughed ruefully. "They didn't. I was being monitored remotely. They were going to give me an electrical shock if I treated you wrong." "So what happened?" Morgan sighed. "You sent me that link about the gender-altering bacteria at a terrible moment of self-hatred. I didn't want to admit the things that I wanted, and work and my family were—" Morgan held up a hand. "Those are excuses. There's no excuse for what I did." "You can say that again," said Charlie. "There's no excuse for what I did. I'm so incredibly sorry. I don't expect your forgiveness." "Thank you," Charlie said. They paused. Having not had the opportunity for themselves yet, they were curious and couldn't help but ask. "Have you been here long enough to get a sense of how your new equipment works?" Morgan's face brightened. "Yes, and I'm quite happy with it. Who knew a prostate could be such fun? I'd always had my suspicions, but—" "I wonder if I'll miss mine." Charlie's eyes widened in horror. "What's wrong?" Morgan rushed over with a vomit bin. Charlie laughed. "No, not that. Would you mind turning around for a moment?" Morgan cocked their head, but obliged. Charlie ran their hands over their large, ample breasts. "I knew it!" Morgan tensed. "Knew what?" "That I was capable of growing some rockin' tits." Morgan muttered something, but Charlie didn't catch it over the hammering pulsations in their groin that seemed to block out all sound. When Charlie's fingers found their crotch, they found their labia full and their vagina lubricated as fuck. "Oh, gods!" Charlie moaned. Morgan didn't turn. "I take it the trip worked?" "Turn around," Charlie said. Morgan obeyed. "I still have not forgiven you." Morgan shook her head. "But I just woke up with a pussy and it needs fucking, and my clit isn't going to lick itself, so consider this make-up sex." Charlie watched Morgan's erection fill the blue pajama pants. "You're sure about this?" Morgan asked timidly. "Yes, you have my consent. Fuck me and make it good." Morgan laughed and held out a hand. "Can I politely request that we shower first and get the vomit off of you?" Charlie groaned. "Well, if this pussy needs fucking right now, do me over the bed, then you can eat me out in the shower. Get to it." "Yes, sir, Morgan saluted and then pulled out their cock. Charlie took Morgan into them and felt a sensation they knew had been hiding within them all their lives, the fullness of a cock inside their pussy, thrusting thirstily. Charlie felt Morgan's cock throbbing rhythmically inside them, swelling impossibly, then releasing as Morgan moaned. Charlie grabbed them and pulled them into the shower, cryo-sickness a distant memory. "Eat my pussy, now!" Morgan knew how to take directions. Their tongue flicked in and out, and Charlie moaned when Morgan sucked their clit. Before they knew it, their legs were shaking with orgasm, and Morgan had to lower them gently to the floor as the water cascaded over their bodies. "Good, good," Charlie said. They missed their prostate pressure a little, but they were too excited by the prospect of multiple orgasms to care for long. They basked in the sensation of being on the edge of a second orgasm, and then after Morgan pleasured them again, on the edge of a third in the bed, and a fourth and a fifth, and by the time Morgan was ready to fuck and finished inside them again, Charlie finally lay spent after 6 orgasms. "Whew," they said. "Good?" Morgan asked. "Not bad for a first try." Morgan raised an eyebrow. "You still owe me some apologies." Morgan couldn't help but smile. "I think we'll be even in a few weeks. I figure 100 orgasms from you ought to do the trick." Morgan scoffed. "What?" "You think that's going to take a few weeks?" "You think you can do it faster than that?" Morgan grinned. "I know the equipment. I used to have some." Charlie laughed and kissed them on those full lips of theirs. "Get me some food first. I'm going to need some more energy." Morgan couldn't stop smiling as they put back on their blue pajama suit. Charlie grinned back. "I haven't forgiven you all the way yet, but it's good to have you back, friend." Morgan kissed them on the forehead and left by the auto door. Charlie sighed and sank comfortably into the bed. It was a good fit to their body, they thought. They might miss their penis and prostate from time to time, but if the bacteria had done it once, what was to say they couldn't do it again? Charlie wouldn't mind swapping equipment out now and again. And who knew? If they changed things around enough, maybe they'd end up with a clit, a pussy, a prostate, a G-spot, and tits with orgasm-sensitive nipples. Fuck yeah. Charlie put their hand between their legs. They were so wet again. "Number 7, here I come." They left at their unintentional pun and smiled as their pelvis swelled with pleasure. Coming to Zebulon 83 was the best choice they'd ever made. The end. And that's our story. If you'd like to get an ad-free version of this podcast, head to patreon.com/Nobilis. As a supporter, you will have access to a personal RSS feed that you can drop into your podcatcher. And if you want bonus content every month, bump up your support to $3 a month. Currently, patrons at the $3 level are enjoying chapters of We Hire Humans, a monster fucker romance. Remember to pick up Monster Whisperer 2nd Class in your favorite ebook retailer or on the Riverdale Avenue Books website, or pick up the audiobook on Audible, Amazon, or Apple. Your support will help ensure this series continues. You have been listening to the Nobilis Erotica Podcast. Theme music is composed and performed by Mass Relay. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Until next time, listen hard.